Greetings, Patrick here. Have Cheetah will view, and welcome to Dollar Theater. So, Dollar Theater is an ongoing series done by myself and a few others, where we find films and we buy films for our collections, and review them, and they have to be $1.25 or less. That's a pretty good deal. It means you're doing pretty good if you get movies for $1.25 or less. So me anyway, I decided to stay in the documentary mode. I had so much fun doing the documentary of the Jaguar for the Nat Geo documentary we did. So I thought I'd go ahead and bring it back again. And today we'll be talking about 2018's Spitfire. It says here the plane that saved the world. I wouldn't go quite that far. It definitely helped out a tremendous lot, but there were other planes, especially the Hawker Hurricane, that contributed mightily to the fray. And you have to also have to remind you there was also another British airplane that did held its own too, and that was the Gloucester Gladiator, which was the last frontline fighter plane of the Allies. The Spitfire, it tells the story about the plane. It shows the narrator starts talking about how it was formed, um, and talk about the flight, the historical flight, and there are over 50 Spitfires that are still flyable. With every year, more and more seem to be coming online. It's an important plane. It's a beautiful plane, that's for sure. And it did, in fact, did carry us more than its weight in saving Britain. It did forget small little thing about this, um, about the Battle of Britain, and that was how the Battle of Britain was saved. It wasn't saved necessarily by the Spitfire, though it had a hell of a, like I said, I mean, you think of the Spitfire, and there's a lot of German pilots who will tell you that it definitely was the Spitfire that ruined their day. But it was an accidental bombing. The Royal Air Force Bomber Corps accidentally bombed. They were supposed to be bombing a industrial plant, and they hit citizens and killed several hundred. And so Hitler, he wanted revenge, so he took off. Attacking Britain, and he decided to throw all his resources at London. Um, and what he didn't know, if he would have known, if he would have just kept on attacking the British airfields and the Spitfires where they were made, he pretty much could have damn near won the war without invasion. The English were it was a very close call for them. Um, and it helped that they did have such a fantastic plane to help them. I can only think of two other planes at that time that would have been able to do that with as much damage as the Spitfire did, and that would be the Corsair, and that would also be the P-51D Mustang. The Hurricane couldn't have done this by itself. If the Hurricane had been the Britain's only frontline fighter, no, it wouldn't have made it. The Hurricane was a very good fighter, and it was fighting over its country, but it was just slightly behind in all aspects. And then when the Focke-Wulf came out, it caused even the mighty Spitfire to take pause because the Focke-Wulf was a very formidable fighter and was a match for the Spitfire. And when the Germans rolled out more than the Britons had of the Spitfire, you can see why it wouldn't have been such a good thing. But it does talk about how the play was created during an atmosphere of World War II and the shadow of World War II. They fought like hell to get the plane built with numbers. This is the time um, where even you don't even know where you don't know who your friend or your enemy was. You have a bomber command that insisted on having more bombers, and you have fighter command insisting on having more fighters. And in this case, the fighters should have won, and they did win, but at a high cost. Of course, they did beat the Germans in the Battle of Britain. They did win. I mean, they had enough planes that once Hitler switched over to bombing civilian centers, then the British had enough time to take a deep breath and keep continuing to build up their fighters and also train their pilots. And so sooner than later, that's something the Germans really didn't do. They only when World War II took effect, there was only really two planes that Germany developed during the war. It developed the Me 262, and it also developed the Focke-Wulf D190. But that's about it. Most of their frontline fighters were still the Messerschmitt Me 109, whereas the Britain, thanks to the Spitfire holding off the Germans, they were able to develop other fighters as well. They were able to develop more types of the Spitfire, and also developed the Hawker Typhoon, which was an excellent ground-to-air attack plane, which caused a lot of damage. Actually, the British, they only really fought with 3 day fighters. They had some night fighters. They had the Bristol Blenheim Bristol, and they also had the Mosquito, the de Havilland Mosquito, which was probably the strongest twin engine fighter plane in the war from Allies to the Germans. Even though the Germans did develop the Me 262, but the Me 262 for what it was, it didn't return. It didn't return what it cost. They were able to be easily shot down, and they suffered a great deal, even though they were the world's first jet. But the Mosquito was a fine plane. And I guess who you talk to, who is a better plane, the Spitfire or the Mosquito. I personally would go with the Spitfire, but damn, the Mosquito sure did his share of damage as well. It talks to various people who flew the plane. Ex-pilots that fought in World War II. It also includes the women illustrious who used to fly the Spitfire from industrial bases. They would fly them up to frontline squadrons to replace them, and they didn't have the manpower to do it. So women would fly the planes from the bottom of Britain to the top of her. Wherever the plane needed to be shipped to, a woman pilot would fly the plane there and turn it over to a frontline pilot. Yeah, that's right. There was women in World War II as well, including a couple of very well-known Russian all-women fighter groups, and they used to go there and bomb the hell out of the Germans with tiny little biplanes. I like this a lot. I really enjoyed it. The plane, it flies beautifully. It sounds. It has a familiar. There's nothing that sounds quite like a Spitfire. A Spit has that engine. As soon as you hear it, you know it's a Spitfire. You just know what it is. There's no other plane in World War II that I can think of, other than the jets, that when they flew over, they were distinctive, especially in fighters. All fighters, to me, and I've seen quite a few, honestly, they all sound the same except for the Spit. The Spit was very distinctive. In fact, if you go and you watch if you watch any movie or any documentary like this with the Spitfire in it, what you hear is what you get. It's a true Spitfire. And man, is that machine, thing of beauty. Spitfire is a gorgeous plane and deadly. The Germans feared them like nobody's business. In the hands of a capable pilot, a Spitfire was a match for any pilot and any plane flying. And I'm saying that Corsair and P-51D. You give yourself a high type of Spitfire, and it was a match. All right. So this is it. This is the plane that saved Britain. I wouldn't say the world, but definitely saved Britain. I enjoyed watching this, and I recommend this too for anybody who loves military history such as I do. Yeah, you want to go ahead and take a look at this. You can probably get this. Probably on eBay. Find this on eBay. I'm sure there's probably some copies on there for some pretty good prices. Otherwise, that is it for this edition of Dollar Theater. Thanks so much for watching. Let us know what you think. What was your favorite World War II plane? I'd like to know that. Fighter or bomber? Yeah, drop it in the comments down below. All right, that's it for us. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Peace.